Hey, we're back with another conceptual BJJ video. Today we're going to be talking about angles in your guard retention. I think this is really important. I don't think a lot of people talk about it, at least in this aspect, and something that's really helped me in my guard retention that I'm working on currently, and hopefully it'll help you guys out here. So what this basically means is one of the things that John needs to really pass my guard for the most part is good upper body control of my head and shoulders. You can pass by having hip control, but he can't really solidify a lot of submissions, at least from side control and top position, until he controls my upper body. He can still go for back attacks if I turn and turtle, but let's say John's in a leg drag here, right? Here he's controlling my hip line here. You can put this knee on the mat here. He's hugging my hip here. So John has really good control of me. But if I'm blocking and framing, until he can get to my upper body, it's going to be very hard for him to submit me, right? Obviously, there's things he can do. He can take out my post and things like that. But I think we need to use that emphasis and when we're retaining guard. And I think this will really help you if you're not flexible, because for me, I'm not super flexible, especially for a jiu-jitsu athlete. So you're going to really need it when retaining guard if you're not a flexible player. So if John's going to pass, let's say he's doing a Toriano pass. One hand here, one at my hip. Go back and say a little bit. So John right here, sometimes as his head gets close to me, right? I basically have two options if I'm stuck at this side angle, right? I can either use my strength and try to push him away to create space. If I'm not, this is if you're not flexible, to push him away, to pummel my leg, right? If I'm flexible and John comes in, maybe I don't even need to push him away that much. If you're super flexible, you can just kind of pummel the leg here. But if you're like me, a lot of times as they're putting pressure, especially John's gonna have his head really low, right? Right here. Go on your feet and then use this form as a frame on my hip. Bring your head down, like that. So it's gonna be really hard to pummel from here. So rather than trying to pummel from here, I'm gonna use these frames, and I can even hip frame here. And what I'm gonna do is make sure my knees are close to my shoulders so I can spin. And I'm gonna move my head away and use this angle here. Just to move my head away a little bit. So now it's gonna be a lot easier for me to pummel my legs in. And even if I don't pummel my leg in, he still has to go further around to pass. So even if I don't pummel this leg, John keeps circling. I keep circling with him until I can get a leg in. So I think circling with your opponent's really important, because I see a lot of people and they do several things wrong here. So as John goes to pass, they move straight up. So if I go straight up, he's just gonna follow me. And then this is what happens, and you eventually get side control when you get tired, right? The other option is when people hip escape, they leave their knee and elbow space really far open. So if I move my upper body away, my lower body stays far away, and he has this gap to get in my knee elbow space, right? You always want to protect that knee elbow space. And part of that is keeping your knees close to your shoulders or chest, right? We want to cover the space because this is the space that he's trying to get in. He's trying to get from my hip to my shoulder to pass, right? So how do we remedy this, especially if we're not flexible when we're retaining guard? I think one of the easiest ways that makes things easier and more efficient for your guard is using these angles. So even if I don't have good frames, if John goes to pass my guard here and I stay at the same angle, he's gonna pass. But if I just adjust, John has much further to pass. So if I just circle, John goes to pass, if I just circle, I create a larger distance for him to pass. I always want my head, shoulders, and hips in a line with him. The better it's in a line, the further distance he has to pass. So if I'm out here, he already has a good angle to pass. So we'll do another position like the knee cut here. I think this is really important because a lot of people, when they get an angle and they move their head and shoulders away, they open up their knee and elbow space. So I think a lot of people are either taught this wrong or do this wrong when they do the hip escape or try to retain their guard. So if John, if you back away for a second, you're just sitting here. So if John's right here and I'm practicing, my hip escapes here. Let's say John's right here, right? You don't have to be there so they can see. But traditional hip escape, a lot of people put the feet on the mat and they do this. But you see when I do that, that opens up all the space. So if John wants to go pass right now, like you come pass, you can step in this space, put knee on belly here, like this. Yeah, you can, he can crush me, right? So I always want to be blocking this space. See how my knees and elbows are connected. So even though I move my head and shoulders back, I still want my, even though I move my head and shoulders back, I want my knees and elbows connected. So I don't want to leave my knees behind like this. So I want to keep them connected. Whether they're on the floor, they're gonna follow, or if they're up in the air, I'm gonna use him to push off of and square up. So you can use the mat, like just stay there on your knees for a second. So you can use the mat here to move your legs. See how they're staying close? Like this, you don't want to do this and open up the space. Because if I'm like in a knee cut, for instance, he can crush that. So a good guy, if I'm pushing like this, he can start collapsing my hips now or lacing through on my legs. So turn this way so they can see. So if I'm like this and I start extending like this too much, he can lace through his arm and start crushing my legs. Like here, you can do this lace. He can like do the lemon squeeze here or start crushing my hips easier. And like you can get out of this, but now it creates an extra barrier. So one thing that's important is like when John's knee cutting here, if you have your frames in place, but your knee and elbow connection is far away. So I think a lot of people, when they move their upper body away, they don't leave their knee elbow space intact. So if I move this far away, it feels like I'm framed away, but really he can collapse on my legs and I have no frame on this space. It's gonna be much harder to control this space that he's trying to get to. Like he can do lemon squeeze pass or like leg weave pass here where he can crush my legs together. And there's ways out of this, you can do triangles off of the overhook and stuff. But this is, for me, I think more of a defensive reactive position. And it's very hard to get out of that crush type of position. We want to avoid that, right? So I think a good way is as he's going to knee pass, is we want to move our head and shoulders away, but you want to keep your knees and elbows connected like this. So my head and shoulders are away, but my knees and elbows are connected. Even if they're extended, like my knees and elbows are close to where it's a frame because he wants to get inside this space. Like he can body lock pass or whatever if I'm not careful here, right? So whether or not your arms are extended, you want them close to your knees and elbows. So if he's like framing here, I always want to be inside this position. So if I want to get up, for instance, I can move my head and shoulders away. Now I get a collar tied and go up to my elbow and come in here. And now I can start attacking, right? So the other part of this is getting your head away is sometimes your partner goes too far into the pass to be able to move your head and shoulders away to where it's better to go underneath them on the other side. So a good example, it's hard to just explain this. I'll show you an example. So if John goes to do the Toriano pass, right here, and he gets past my hip line, and now he's approaching my shoulder line. See how high he is? At this point, it's going to be much harder for me to move my head away and pummel this leg, or either of these legs, right? Because he's so far past my guard. So what I'm actually going to do is, it seems like you're helping him pass your guard, but I'm going to keep my knees and elbows up. I'm going to use my frames to keep him there, but I'm going to use my arms to move my head and shoulders off to the other side. So as he's going to pass further, I help him to that side. And now I bring my feet back in as I circle underneath him. So it's going to be the same concept of moving your head and shoulders away, creating those angles. But basically, you're going to take what your opponent gives you, right? So if my opponent's close to my hip line, it's easier to move, obviously, this way. If he's close to my hip line, it's easier to move this way. Now, if he gets further, it's going to be much more work to recover. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck here. I get stuck here a lot sometimes to where it's hard and you're stuck and you're just trying to recover this one way. Instead, keep your knees close to your chest. As he pushes his leg, it actually helps you. And I can use using my arms to help spin me to the other side. And the closer your knees are to your shoulders, the easier it's going to be to spin. Because it's like a spin top, right? It's like a spin top. So the less surface area that you have on the mat, the easier it's going to be to spin. And it's important to know which one to do. So if they're around your hip line or past your hip line, that's going to be the best recovery. If they start going more north-south, you can spin under. And keep in mind that you can use all these concepts from sitting guard as well, right? So if you're starting to pass my sitting guard right here, right? If he goes to one side here, I can use my hand on the mat and square up. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, as he's going to one side, let's say you're over here, if he does like a standard Toriano pass, right? Here, and he goes to the side. If I just go straight back, a lot of people go straight back, and he keeps chasing me down. He keeps chasing me down, right? And it's gonna be hard to recover. So rather than have that losing battle, where it's now a game of speed, just use angles, the same concept. So as he's passing here, I'm just gonna post, and I'm gonna spin. So I'm gonna move my hip out, and spin to where my hips, shoulders, and head are in a line. So the more your hips, shoulders, and head are in a line with him, the further distance he has to pass and create an angle. And I think this is really overlooked, and it's a really important concept if you want to save energy while maintaining your guard retention. Try to invert to the legs. You can go knee tap too. Is that good?
Yeah.
You want to do some sitting ones when I'm sitting?
Yeah.
Okay. Some sitting guard ones. Yeah.